But joining us now in studio for more insights on the numbers is Irnest Kaplan, MD at Kaplan Equity Analysts. Good to have you with us this evening,
Thanks,
Irnest.
good evening.
Maybe let's follow up on that MVNO question. The reason why I brought it up is because there have been rumors in the market that FNB is looking to launch its own MVNO. Mr. Price recently launched there, so it would make sense for a brand like MTN with the infrastructure in place just to capitalize on it.
Yeah, I think definitely, they could provide some infrastructure to enable such an MVNO, but whether that generates massive sort of profits for them or whether it swings the group numbers, I really don't think so.
But today, looking through the numbers, maybe let's pick up on SA, where unfortunately we were kind of the bad apple. I used that word with Sfiso and he wasn't impressed with me today of the group results. Unfortunately, losing prepaid subscriber numbers and voice growth, as usual, taking a significant decline.
Yeah, you're quite right. I think SA was the disappointment. I mean, it's rare to see MTN, one of its operations, have revenue down by 3% and EBITDA down by 8%. That's not what we think of MTN as a growth company. But bear in mind they did have some problems with, they cited certain problems with their prepaid products that were a bit out of kilter with the rest of the market. They say that they have fixed those, and in the second quarter already they started to see improvements from that. So hopefully things will get back, but really it's not good. EBITDA down 8%. Yeah, that's not great. If it wasn't for the other markets in MTN's fold, this would be a really bad result.
I'm sure you're referring to run Nigeria there, aren't you? Tell us about that and is that going to be the big growth story going forward for MTN, or do you see other regions? Or
thanks for asking. Look, we could be here for an hour if we spoke about all the operations, but let's just look at Nigeria as the other big one.
Yes.
Revenue up 8, EBITDA up 11. Now, that's a long way from a few years back when I recall that market was growing EBITDA at 20s and 30s. And bear in mind, this result, the EBITDA margin peaked at 60%. I'm not saying it's going to go down in a hurry, but those margins are very high. The market is in a slowing growth phase. So I can't see Nigeria accelerating dramatically from here. There were some problems that they announced in the 6 months specific to the period. But generally speaking, Nigeria's doing well for a big market, but that's not massive growth. And the two kind of balance each other out.
It's interesting you make mention of that because one of your peers during the results presentation asked the question as to how does Nigeria, or MTN rather, in Nigeria continue to gain market share, especially when their prices are at almost a 50% premium versus their competitors. And Sfiso basically said that hence the launch of mobile money as well as other data products, because they realize that on voice you cannot survive alone. So quite clearly they're looking for that niche market, mainly being the mobile money opportunity in Nigeria.
Yeah, and just to bring the topic more general, a few years back, we all saw the voice market slowing, and we all thought that data is going to save the day for these mobile operators. Well, in South Africa, data revenue only grew by 14%. It was in the 30s 2 or 3 years ago. It then was in the 20s. It's now 14. That's probably going to go down further. In Nigeria, data revenue grew by 16%. And data is contributing in the region of 20 to 25% of the group's revenue. So, it's very difficult for MTN to turn the entire thing around and start accelerating again like we saw in the past. And I don't think anyone expects that anyway. I guess what you were referring to earlier is the other things, the e-commerce, the other value adds, not just the raw data and the raw voice, other things that you can do having millions of these mobiles in everyone's pocket. And I've always said for a while, actually for about 2 years now, that I do think the mobile operators need to work aggressively in that area because there's so much potential for them to do. But they're so busy keeping the network up and sorting out their distribution and their pricing for their normal voice and data, that they don't seem to be putting enough effort into all these other areas. So perhaps the mobile money is one of those.
If you were to analyze that or try and forecast the different sections, so voice as opposed to mobile money, as opposed to data going forward, do you see them in the net of those having an upward growth? Or do you see maybe a bit of a flat and then a spike up? Or what is your sort of general feeling?
No,
because to combine those three is quite difficult, as you said.
I think the net effect, even if they did well on the other things, like mobile money and whatever else they do, for the foreseeable future, all that it will do, in my view, is slow the decline in the growth. So instead of the growth dropping to zero very quickly, it might just slowly trend down, because those are very small, and this business has got a huge sort of turnover. Yeah. So it's very difficult to grow new areas from scratch in a short space of time, at least.
Irnest, just to close off with two questions. First, is convergence the future for telecoms operators? Secondly, do you still stick with MTN as an investor?
Short answer, firstly on convergence, yes, I do think so, but I think in an African sense, the sort of mobile is the way. It's not so much a convergence between fixed line and mobile, because there isn't much fixed line anyway. So I think it's a bit of a moot question from an African point of view. South Africa is a little bit different. Should we keep with MTN? Well, here's a business that will grow headline earnings between 10 and 15%, I'd say, comfortably for the next year or two. Return on equity in the region of about 26%. Healthy dividend yield, 4 to 5%. Yeah, I'd say hold it. I mean, it's not going to double, but it's really a great business with really stable revenues. So I would keep on holding it.
One to keep for the portfolio, no doubt. Irnest, thank you so much for your time this evening. Good having you with us. That was Irnest Kaplan, MD at Kaplan Equity Analysts.